Welcome into the roundtable. I'm Brad Wakai. That is Tyson Gentry. We are continuing along in our divisional breakdowns, our second to last one here as we get ready to wrap up the AFC conference here. Moving into the AFC East, very, very interesting division here, Tyson. You have you have the Bills, who are the Super Bowl favorites. You have an upstart Miami Dolphins team who really revamped their roster. You have the Patriots, who overachieved last year, and the Jets, who going into the year had a very hopeful offseason with their draft picks and a hope to have Zach Wilson take the next step. He gets injured in preseason. Now there's more question marks. Overall, your general view as we get ready to discuss the AFC East?
Team by team basis, it's cool, man, but this thing's wrapped before it starts. Like, none of these other teams have Josh Allen. That's the end of discussion.
That really is, like, when you break it down. I mean, Mac Jones, nice quarterback. Tua, I love, and Zach Wilson, huge question marks. But I mean, like you said, nobody has Josh Allen, and that's why they're monster favorites to win this division here. And we will get to them last. But right now, we're going to start with the New York Jets. I think probably the biggest question mark in this division, quite honestly. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do early to start the year, coming off a 4-13 season. Supposedly, Zach Wilson looked a lot better in the offseason, was looking to make the jump under second-year coordinator Mike LaFleur. He gets injured in preseason. Now you're going to go with Joe Flacco. Not a great way to start the season if you're the Jets with high expectations or at least some hope coming into the year.
It just feels like the Jets. It sucks, but Zach Wilson, to me, and we talked about it during the year last year, he flashed big time at certain points throughout the season. Some of the throws he can make are just special. But there was a lot of really stupid things that Zach Wilson did that we're looking for him to clean up on. Like, he needs to get better at holding onto the football, reading defenses. All that stuff can be worked out, but not when you're injured, right? And we watched Mike White throw for 7 million yards in his 2 starts or whatever it was last season. But, like, we know what Joe Flacco is at this point in his career. And if Joe Flacco has to play games for the Jets this season to start it, like, the season's almost lost before it gets going. Like, if they play 3 games with Joe Flacco, I don't expect them to come out of that 3-0, 2-1. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I like Zach Wilson coming out of college. And he was bad last year, but there were moments, like you said, where you're like, man, this kid, there's a lot
Some
here.
Of the off-platform throws, just special.
Exactly. And he's got to get better at not holding onto the ball as long. Like, that's a huge thing, but that's having better receivers who can get separation. That's having a better offensive line in front of them, which I think they tried to address a bit. Now, Mekhi Becton got hurt. They went and added Dwayne Brown to replace him at right tackle. So that was supposed to help. And adding Laken Tomlinson at offensive guard, just to get a little bit more formidable up front there. But losing Marcus May at safety, I think, is a big thing for this defense, who actually really regressed under Robert Saleh, which was shocking last year. I think they were last in the league in actual defense, which is crazy for a defensive coordinator, his talent. Jamison Crowder's gone. Ryan Griffin, tight end, he's gone. Keelan Cole didn't do much for him as receiver last year, is out. But the additions really is they're getting younger around Zach Wilson. Sauce Gardner at corner, Garrett Wilson at receiver in the first round, Jermaine Johnson, edge rusher as well in the first round, and your boy Breece Hall at running back, who should see some good action here. Going to your best case with the Jets here, Tyson.
Best case for me is that Elijah Moore picks up where he kind of left off before he got hurt. If you've been listening to us, Elijah Moore is pretty highly regarded here on the round table. To me, like, when I watch him, I'm like, damn, that's AB light. Like, he's special. And if he keeps that going, if Breece Hall is the prospect on that Jonathan Taylor tier of prospect-wise, I doubt he gets to the year JT had last year is pretty special. But a lot of those guys, if those things go well, this could be a competitive football team. And I think they're a year away from where they really want to be. If you're Joe Douglas, you're looking at this thing and you're happy with what you've built to this point, but you need to keep expanding. They need to trim a lot of fat off the edges of this roster. There's just a lot of guys that play for the New York Jets that might not get opportunities to be starters other places in the NFL. But honestly, best case scenario to me is our boy Sauce Gardner's top 3 corner in the league.
Oh, man. I mean, he has an opportunity to be the best out of that draft class. That's saying something. It's talented draft class, skill position players.
0 targets in 3 preseason games for the kid. Some respect.
Yeah. I think best case scenario for me is when Zach Wilson comes back, he grows on where he was last year to finish the season, continues to get better. You have to have a quarterback if you're the New York Jets. It has to be this kid, because if not, I mean, not like Sam Darnold was great for him. In fact, he was awful for him. But you can't continue to have turnstiles at quarterback if you're the Jets. And what they're doing right now is banking on Wilson is the guy. Like, they're getting young with Wilson. Then you can't go and get another young kid when you're cycling through all these rookie contracts if Zach Wilson's not good. So best case scenario for me, Wilson continues to grow into the role of quarterback for the New York Jets, and he looks to be the part. Yes, there's going to be some growing mistakes. We all knew that with him coming out. We didn't think he was going to be NFL ready right away. He was just thrown into the situation where he had the play, and you're seeing the warts early.
Does it feel like Zach Wilson might have the longest leash of all the quarterbacks taken last season?
Probably. I mean, they desperately need him to be good, so they're going to be very patient with him.
I agree. I don't know if that's the correct decision here, whether that should be Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence or Trey Lance, which, by the way, re-signed Jimmy Garoppolo the day of this recording. So his leash might be a little bit shorter than we expected. But it sure feels like they're going to give Zach Wilson every chance to succeed.
What's your worst case for the Jets?
They suck. Bottom falls out. The offensive guys they drafted, Garrett Wilson's silky smooth, but maybe it doesn't translate. Like, some guys can run really good routes, and if you're undersized and the quarterback can't hit you where he needs to put the ball, turnovers happen. Like, there's a lot of guys of Garrett Wilson's build that haven't worked out in the NFL. I think he's a good player. I thought that he was better than Chris Olave in college. I don't know if that's a hot take or not, but there was a lot of Chris Olave truthers. He's a good player too, but I like Garrett Wilson a ton. If him and Elijah Moore take a step forward, they still have the second best receiving duo in the AFC East. It'll still be behind Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. But you know what? Zach Wilson could be better than Tua. This season, if those guys don't hit and this thing falls out again, and then you're staring at the top of the draft, like, there's some guys that could really, really help New York, but they're the same kind of guys we've been saying could really, really help New York for a while, and nothing's helped.
And that's the cycle that the Jets are in right now. I think worst case scenario for me is this defense doesn't improve. And you're looking at Robert Saleh, and you're like, wait a minute, this was supposed to be the guy that gets this defense right. And you're looking at him like he's smelling the snake oil now. Like, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. He's in over his head. He's supposed to be the defensive guy. He can't even fix our defense, let alone coach a football team here. I think that would honestly be the worst case. I think Zach Wilson, we know you have to be patient with him. I think the Jets organization will be. It's more so if this defense doesn't improve and you're looking at Saleh, like, you're supposed to have the answers to this thing and you can't figure it out. That's what I think would be the absolute worst case for this team.
What a bummer that would be. If that guy can't coach, if we lose that guy on the sidelines, I mean, he'd
have a spot on the defense somewhere.
That's true, but that's a knock. The bald heads everywhere, man.
I know.
Like, he rocks.
Tough for my community. Tough for my community. Him and Dave Aranda, just great bald heads. Realistically, what do you expect from the Jets, though, coming into this season, year 2 of Zach Wilson?
I think that the Jets are going to leave us wanting more at the end of this year. That's honestly my realistic expectation for them, is that they have weeks where it's like, holy shit, the Jets just put up 35 on these guys. And then they're going to have weeks, and they're going to have a lot more of them, where they can't move the ball and the defense can't stop anybody. To me, this is like a 5 to 6 win football team. And look, busts happened in the first round, but when you get 3 guys in the top 25, if they hit on 2 of those, they're going to be in a good spot. And knowing the Jets, they might miss on all 3, but you and I both believe Sauce Gardner is just a lock. He was as ready as they get walking into this thing. I like Johnson. I like Breece Hall. I like Garrett Wilson. I like the direction this thing is going in. And worst case scenario, 2 or 3 years down the line, is they're replacing Zach Wilson with a loaded cabinet full of good players.
Yes, that's a great point. Some other things I want to add here too. Realistically, they're going to be bad. This is going to be a bad football team. I don't think in one offseason you can address these aspects of your team. Minus 13 in turnover margin. They only had 7 takeaways fumble-wise. They gave up 20 picks, only had 7 taken away. And now Sauce should help that. But if they're not going to throw to him, on the other side of the field, you're going to need to help him out
And then
somewhere. Maybe it's DJ Reed.
No safeties over the top. Like Marcus May's gone. I know he's traditionally a guy kind of more up. He's making plays, right? And Marcus May makes a lot of plays in the run game as well. And I think that's going to be huge because to me, the defensive line is just full of a bunch of guys that we said were can't miss. And almost all of them missed, dude.
I know. It's crazy. Minus 20 sack margin as well. 33 sacks. Gave up 53, which is nuts. And they also faced the 8th toughest schedule this year, even as a 4th place schedule, which is crazy. Just the NFL pounding the Jets after a 4-win season. That's unfair. So I think this is going to be a bad team realistically. I don't think there's going to be much improvement. You're just waiting to see if your players you drafted can flash or not. New England Patriots. A lot of bad things coming out of camp about this Patriots team. I mean, not positive at all. I mean, I have, head coach Bill Belichick. This is his 23rd season, which is crazy. Offensive coordinator, I have a big question mark because I don't even think they know who's going to do it. Like, apparently Bill's going to call the plays, but they don't know if it's going to be Matt Patricia or Joe Judge, which is, picking between drowning or getting burned alive. I think those are bad options there. And you have Mac Jones going to a second season, and you want him to improve off of last year, and you have major question marks about who's designing this offense for him. Overachieved at 10-7 last year, got absolutely pounded by the Bills in the wild card round, 17-47. Where's your sense of where the Patriots are at this year?
Well, another thing I want to add on to what you just said about not knowing where the offense is, Devontae Parker, Jacoby Myers, Kendrick Bourne are probably their 3 best wide receivers on the roster. Like Tyquan Thornton, we felt was a bit of a reach. He's a very good speed guy, but he broke his collarbone, I think. I think he's out for like 8 weeks or something like that. So you're rolling into this thing. You lose James White, which you didn't have last year, but it's always good to have in the back pocket. We know the Patriots love them some James White. But now it's Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris basically is the focal points of your offense. And that's just not good enough. It's just not. I like Damian Harris. I love Ramondre Stevenson. It's just not good enough.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you want to run the ball and you lose Shaq Mason and Ted Karras, who were great guards for you last year. And a lot of this has to do with, and we said this last year, and I think we may have been a year early. I'm not going to lie. We didn't think the Patriots were going to be good last year. They went on a crazy spending spree, and it's really catching up to them this year. They had to get rid of J.C. Jackson because all the guys they paid for last year, Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, Nelson Aguilar, you name it. I mean, their cap hits doubled this year. So they had to let some serious players go, and a lot of that's casualties. Ted Karras, Mason, that we already mentioned. J.C. Jackson had to get traded away, and Dante Hightower, their guy. Kyle Van Noy, also a veteran, they're gone. You had to make some changes here. So you're losing a lot of glue of this team. I don't know. I think we may have been on the right side of this thing, which again, realistically, Tyson, just maybe a year early on where we thought the Patriots were at. But go ahead with your best case scenario. I mean, ceiling wise, what do you think the Patriots could be at?
I know they won 10 last year, but I don't think I can get to 10. Best case scenario. I mean, if you take Bill Belichick out of the equation here and you show yourself all the other variables, it's an objectively really bleak situation. When you put Bill Belichick into it, right, it's the same thing as Greg Popovich with the Spurs. It's like, well, you might be able to make these guys overachieve. But to me, for this roster with this quarterback, I know everybody loves them some Mac Jones. I'm not sold. But I think Mac Jones looked like an NFL quarterback in the same way that a lot of guys have looked like NFL quarterbacks over the years that just kind of stick around. Like, he's going to have a starting job probably, and he'll be fighting for a backup job at some point later in his career. But we'll always know, like, Mac Jones is going to do exactly what he just did. I don't know how much better Mac Jones gets, and they certainly didn't help him, right? And so for me, best case scenario is like maybe they're really surprising us and they're fighting for a wild card spot again, but I just don't see it.
Yeah, best case for me is maybe 9 wins. I mean, absolute best case scenario. I think the peak of this talent on this roster is 9 wins. Belichick can do some things, man, but what happened when Popovich started losing his players? Thing went downhill quick, and Belichick started to lose a lot of his guys. And I know he's a genius, and I know he's the best ever, but you still need players in this league to play, especially when you're lining up in the AFC, and there's some dudes around this division. We're going to get into these last 2 teams, but 9 wins, the absolute best case scenario I see. And worst case scenario, Tyson, I think this team could legitimately win 6 games. I think this roster is not good. I mean, there's not a single player I don't think on this anywhere on this roster besides Matthew Judon that will frighten a defensive or offensive coordinator. Mac Jones, I think he's a solid quarterback. He doesn't scare me. The running backs are really good players. They do not scare me at all. They're solid. I mean, Devontae Parker can't separate. Kendrick Bourne's fine. Jacoby Myers is okay. You go down the line anywhere here. There's not one single game breaker anywhere on this roster. Legitimately, they could win. This could be a 6-win football team if everything goes poorly.
And I think it could be worse than that.
Ooh, wow.
I think it could be worse than that. I think absolute worst case, this team is 4th place in the AFC East. I think worst case scenario, this team is picking in the top 8 or 9 of the draft next year with a ton of questions to answer, including what does Bill Belichick do? Because is he going to stick around for a rebuild? I don't think so. It doesn't feel like they wanted to 2 years ago when they went out and spent all that money on bad players. And now it's like, what are we going to kick the can down the road and sell off picks to get guys? Because these are going to be valuable draft picks. To me, this is like the Patriots played Madden on easy for a long time. They had a quarterback taking $17 million a year when everyone else is getting 20. They were attracting top free agents, all that stuff. You paid Jonnu Smith an insane amount of money to block.
He's not a blocker.
I mean, he's a better blocker than Hunter Henry, right?
True.
But like, that's where we're at. That like, you pay a tight end to block, and now you have nobody to throw the fucking football to.
Realistically, for me, I'm not going to go all in on the doomsday scenario that we just laid out here. Out of disrespect for Belichick, I mean, he's too good. I don't care who's slapdick OCs are. he's gonna win games just because he's so good. I think this is an 8-win football team, 8-9, 7-10, somewhere along those lines. I realistically think they're going to win 8 games. We're going to be looking at them like they're just another average team in this league.
That's where I'm at, realistically. I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Patriots ended up going 4-4 or something like that in the AFC East, winning 8 games. I was going to go with 7, but 8 sounds fine too, because I think the Patriots are just going to be at this tier for a while. And I mean, get comfortable, because it's not fun being around this spot in the NFL. There's very little dividends that it pays to be picking 16th year over year. And unless something drastic changes, like, look, the roster stinks. The cap situation isn't good. Bill Belichick is getting older. You're all in on Mac Jones, which is good. Mac Jones is a good player. Mac Jones isn't a ceiling raiser. Like, Mac Jones wasn't billed as even to be as good as a rookie. Like, he was the most pro-ready rookie, and then he outperformed expectations. But are we expecting him to do that again? I'm not.
Miami Dolphins. This is a fun one to talk about, and especially my love for Tua Tagovailoa. 9-8 last year, didn't make the playoffs. New head coach Mike McDaniel, who was the architect and assisting Kyle Shanahan of the offense that they were building in San Francisco. Tua's 3rd season now, seemingly he has the backing of the front office as well as a coach who wants to come in and work with them. They go out and get Tyreek Hill, Terron Armstead, Cedric Wilson at receiver, Connor Williams also on the offensive line to try to build this thing up. Chase Edmonds, Raheem Mostert at running back. They just cut Sonny Michel today, but in case Tua gets hurt, they have Teddy Bridgewater. Who they lose? Devontae Parker, who sucks. I mean, legitimately one of the worst receivers in the NFL. Legitimately last in the league in separation. Like, he's awful. Will Fuller, who never can stay healthy, a.k.a. Mr. Glass. Mac Hollins, who's probably their second best receiver last year, which is pretty crazy. Other than that, not a lot of huge losses and a ton of major additions. They, in my opinion, might have had the second best offseason in the league behind the Eagles. Where are you at regarding the Dolphins?
Well, second best offseason, but they had to give up draft picks and things like that because of tampering. So in the long run, it might not look as good. I like the Dolphins, and I think we were a year early in the Dolphins as well. Last year, we were all over Miami. I guess best case, we probably had them at 10 wins, and they won 9. So we weren't that wrong about Miami. But to me, this is how you go all in. Like, we're playing ball. We believe in Tua. We go out, we get Mike McDaniel, which, by the way, McDaniel and McDaniels is going to get real. It's going to get real confusing this year.
Both if they were in the same division.
Oh, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do. I can't even get the Vegas Raiders straight. I'd be calling McDaniel from Oakland. I'd be wrong on both counts. But I think this team, like, they went all in. They're here to play. They don't want to sit by and watch Buffalo run through this division for the next 6-7 years. They want to get in this thing.
Yeah, I love how aggressive they are. They haven't drafted well the offensive lineman. They said, "Fuck it, let's just go get some. Let's go buy some. We know who's good. Let's go get them." I think Taron Armstead, if healthy, is a bona fide star on the offensive line in this league. Where you have best case scenario, I mean, we were high on them last year. They've done nothing but improve. I think obviously there's the question mark is the quarterback and Tua Tagovailoa. But I mean, if everything works out, where are you at with them?
You ready?
I'm ready.
I think best case scenario for the Miami Dolphins is they find their way to the AFC Championship game.
Whoa.
That's what I think. Look,
wow.
They improve on offense, which was the bugaboo, right? The defense is actually pretty good, and the defense is amazing at creating big plays. How much of that was Brian Flores? We're going to find out. But look, the secondary, Xavier Howard, Byron Jones, and then every first-round pick they've had for like 10 years, it feels like they've invested a corner. And pretty much every second-round pick, too. The secondary is good. The defensive line is better. The linebacking core is athletic. We don't know how talented they are 1 through maybe 5 there, but they're all athletes. Best case scenario is this thing clicks. Tua looks like the guy that we thought was going to be playing professional football before the hip injury, which, by the way, according to most guys, doctors and things like that in that field, this is about the time they would expect him to feel better. Granted, he's been getting hit by 300-pound guys for 2 years or whatever on this thing, so maybe it's a longer road to recovery there. But best case, like, Tua slings this thing all over the field. Mike McDaniel is so creative at scheming run plays and things like that. I think Chase Edmonds is being slept on. I know that we kind of forgot about the first 6 weeks that he had last year in Arizona. He was a good player. Yeah. And if he is that guy and Raheem Mostert can kind of spell him, it's going to be a really good offense, Brad. And they're going to score a ton of points. And it's good because they're going up in a division with probably the best offense in football.
Yeah, I mean, AFC Championship game. I love that. I think you're jumping aboard 2-9 with me. You're gonna be my right hand man in 2-9. I'm leading the thing this season.
I've been with you since he fumbled going into the goal line against OSU when it was 7-0 in the 2019 game. That's when I was like, I love this guy.
Nice little dig there, a little college football. I think best case for me, Dolphins win 11 games. They massively – I mean, the market doesn't like him as much. I think the public's on him, but the market's not very high on him. I think Tua is going to be awesome this year. They finally have an offensive line to protect him. And when he had time last year, he was one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL.
And he wasn't throwing to Tyreek Hill.
Exactly. And all he had was
Jalen
Waddle,
who now moves into a role as one of the 5 best number 2 wideouts in the NFL.
Like, this is going to be a really good offense. I think Mike Gesicki is going to be a huge beneficiary from these guys on the edge too. You're going to have a legit threat down the seam that can go and get one for Tua. This offense is going to be awesome. My concern is this. They were the 4th healthiest team in 2021. You expect some regression there, but +0 in turnover margin last year for a really good defense. I don't think that's going to be the case. This is a team that takes the ball away, and I think you're going to see a spike in turnovers recovered for this team. Best case scenario for me, 11 wins, and they're really formidable in the playoffs. What about the worst case for you if everything goes wrong?
They're still the Dolphins. They've been quietly sliding underneath here as one of the worst organizations in sports for how long have they been? Since 1972, I guess. Since Dan Marino. But since then, the Dolphins have just kind of done the wrong thing over and over and over again. Tyreek Hill loses a step. That's the big one. That's number 1 right off rip. Tua can't throw the deep ball, which I think is ludicrous. I'm pretty sure you're on the same page as me. Turn on the tape. The dude, like, just because they don't look like Patrick Mahomes bombs doesn't mean they're not bombs. Okay, he had the longest air yards completion in the league last year. We don't have to talk about that. But worst case scenario, I think they're bad. Like, this offense doesn't work. Mike McDaniel was just Kyle Shanahan's apprentice, and he's not ready for this job. And I think that is the absolute worst case. No first-round picks next year. If Tua doesn't take a step forward, now we're in a situation where you're trying to pair him with some other capital that you have going after one of the big dogs, which I don't know if you paid attention this offseason, but it's not cheap.
Yeah, I mean, worst case scenario for me is twofold. One being the biggest one, that Tua can't play. And I know a lot of people already are on that conclusion. Dolphins have done nothing to set up Tua for success. He had the worst offensive line in the league when he first started out, when taking over for Ryan Fitzpatrick.
They didn't want him to play.
They didn't want him to play. His head coach hated him, and then beyond that, he didn't have receivers who could get open, so he's forcing balls in. So everybody's like, "Oh, he throws picks all the time." That's because nobody's open, so he has to fucking force it. And I loved like all these guys. Tua sucks. Then you actually dive into the advanced stats. The dude's pretty good when he has time to throw, and he's good in a deep ball too. I think he was the most accurate deep ball thrower in the NFL last year.
Let's just go to realistic because I think this fits better. Maybe Tua doesn't have it, and maybe at the end of the year, this is the conversation that I'm predicting people are having is like, well, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle make Tua. Somebody's got to be made by those two guys. Like, who cares? Who gives a shit whether Tua gets better if the offense is working? And then we're like, well, Jameis Winston supported this offense in Tampa Bay, and they only won. Not the same thing. Not the same thing. Tua takes care of the ball. Tua turns the ball over was the funny thing because, as you said, nobody can – like when Devontae Parker is running at like peak Alshon Jeffrey speed down the sideline and you have to try to force fit one over somebody's back shoulder, they're hard throws. And he's not Justin Herbert, and he's not going to be Justin Herbert. But realistically, I think Tua is an above-average quarterback in the NFL, and that's what I expect to see this year. And if Tua is an above-average quarterback in the NFL, this team will win 10 games.
Yep, I'm on the same page with you. I love Tua. I think he's going to be really good. And if he is really good, I want to hear everybody take back all that shit they were talking about him because he didn't give this kid a chance. Now you're going to try to walk it back you're like Tyson said, you're going to do the thing. Well, you have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. It's like, yeah, and so what? He didn't have anything before that. So finally give him something. Look how good he is. I think this team wins 10 games. I think it's going to be a good team. I mean, I was digging into him today. I think Mike McDaniel's going to create an offense that's going to be awesome for every single player involved. Man.
They're going to be funky. Guys are going to be getting the ball in situations that – look, what was Jalen Waddle's primary role at Alabama?
Speed, slot.
Jalen Waddle –
Debo-ish.
Sounds weird, doesn't it? And he's not going to get the carries out of the backfield and stuff like that because nobody does that shit. That's Debo Samuel shit. Like it's exclusive. There's like one – A.J. Brown could maybe do it. And that's like it as far as the NFL goes. But Jalen Waddle wasn't put in a position last year to really make plays. It was a lot of catching the ball 12 yards down the field, and it's an out route and he's out of bounds. Jalen Waddle is going to be put in a position to make plays. And I think that people at the NFL level haven't seen that version of Jalen Waddle, which is the one that I thought Miami was going to be trying to bring out of him instead of repress. And Mike McDaniel is going to let this thing fly, brother.
Oh, yeah. This is going to be this is going to be a fun team to watch. Another fun team to watch, the Buffalo Bills. I don't really need to get into it besides, actually a surprising 11-6 record last year. We're 7-5, I think, at one point before they cranked it up. But lost an absolute heartbreaker in the divisional round in OT to the Chiefs. McDermott's back. The only thing different this year, really, you got to replace Brian Daboll, so they promoted the QB coach Ken Dorsey to the OC. Leslie Frazier's back on defense. Josh Allen's still there. They add Von Miller. Jordan Phillips is back. Tim Settle's there. They add O.J. Howard at tight end and Jamison Crowder at wide receiver, as well as David Quisenberry at guard. They're trying to get more. They're trying to be more aggressive on the offensive line to be able to run the ball a lot better. That's a huge thing McDermott's trying to push for. Bills are awesome. They're awesome. How awesome are they, Tyson? If you want to give an overview before we get in the best case,
they're awesome. They're about as awesome as it gets on paper. When you look at team to team, they have advantages everywhere. They say they want to run the ball more, but then they take James Cook, who is a satellite running back. That's what he was at Georgia. He might hit home runs. Devin Singletary doesn't really get between the tackles in the way that you'd like. And Zach Moss looks like he stinks. And so it might be the Josh Allen show running the football again, which we talked about a year ago and we're going to talk about after this year and probably going into the next year that's dangerous.
Well, McDermott doesn't want to do that as much.
It works. And sometimes it looks to me like they're like, hey, Josh, This is a rollout to the right. If you got nothing, throw it out of bounds. And he's like, dude, I'm hurdling Anthony Barr right here. Like,
Right.
I can do it. And so maybe you don't rein him in.
Best case scenario for me with the Buffalo Bills, this team wins 14 games. They win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to cruise through the regular season. This is the best roster on paper. I think they're the deepest. I think they have the highest high-end talent. They have
They just
stars
added Von
everywhere.
Miller, like out of nowhere. It was like, where's Von Miller? Oh, Buffalo. What the?
Yeah, like apparently they're looking to add Odell Beckham Jr. as well. Like they're looking to, this is their time because they know Josh Allen. That extension's coming soon. They're not going to be able to have the luxury of adding a Von Miller just because they need somebody on the edge. Like they know this is their time now. Best case scenario, magic comes true for Buffalo. They win the Super Bowl and they break the drought.
Yeah, I mean, best case is they win the Super Bowl and they're the best team all year long. Isaiah McKenzie steps in that Cole Beasley role. Everyone thinks it's going to be Jameson Crowder. I don't think so. I like Isaiah McKenzie to take over
Coaches
that role
too, apparently.
Well, I think he got like 180 yards or something in the preseason game. Like
pretty good.
Gabe Davis. I mean, last time we saw him, he just had 400 yards and 4 touchdowns or whatever it was. I don't think he's that guy. But Stephon Diggs.
You said Gabe Davis isn't that guy?
I don't think he's he's not going to average 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. I think Gabe Davis could be a nice number 2 wide receiver for this season. Diggs is Diggs. Josh Allen is the best quarterback in the NFL. No disrespect to Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, any of those guys. I don't know if I'm picking Josh Allen to win me a game, though, and that's where worst case scenario comes into play, is that we did it again. We crowned this team one more time before they were ready. And if they don't win, it kind of feels like if they win this year, the window's wide open for a while. And if they don't, the window gets real small. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to agree with you there. If they don't win here, I think the window might be shut, which is crazy to say. They're going to have to pay Josh Allen so much money.
He's going to get $1 billion
all of a sudden. Right? Like in this roster, all of a sudden, it's going to go from deep to really thin really quick.
And old.
And
it'd be an old roster. Like, it's fun at this time of year when you add Von Miller. And if he helps you win a Super Bowl, then every penny's worth it. But if you don't win one and 2 years down the line, you're like, fuck, we're still paying Von Miller. Like, this is ridiculous. Then that's a realistic thing that could happen. Worst case for me, though, like, they're still going to make the playoffs. If Josh Allen plays 17 games, the Bills make the playoffs. It's just maybe they're not that team. Maybe they're the Buffalo Bills. They're always the bride, right?
Right. And
or always the, what is his name? Bridesmaid. If they were the bride, they'd be getting married to the Super Bowl. So we'll backtrack that. You got me.
The Buffalo Bridesmaids. I agree, man. Worst case scenario, they're just missing something. And whether it's like a winning gene, whether it's luck, I don't know what it is. But worst case scenario, maybe it's not even we crowned them too early. It's just they're just fucking really unlucky. I mean, they were 0-5 in one-score games last year. 0-5, like they were legitimately could have only lost one game.
I think one of those was to the Jaguars.
It was, yeah. 9-6 they lost. They're the second healthiest team in 2021. So worst case scenario, they're really banged up, and we can't even see how good this team is. And they're fighting an uphill battle all year. Even with that, because of their depth, because of their talent, because of their quarterback play, unless he gets hurt, I still expect them to be in the playoffs and contend. It just maybe this elite team we see on paper, due to being banged up, just can't quite get them to that top spot. Realistically, Tyson, give me your thoughts on this.
I think this team's playing in the Super Bowl. I mean, realistically, I expect them to win the AFC. I just think, based on what we've seen from them the last 2 years, they've had heartbreak twice to the same guys in Kansas City. We'll talk about Kansas City in our AFC West breakdown, but it feels like they might be a little bit more vulnerable than they've been in years past. Well, the last 3, really. But realistically, I expect Buffalo to be able to throw the ball 50 times if they want. They're not going to be a good running team, but they don't have to be. Because if the defense is getting after folks and they're scoring 17 to 20 points in the first half, they can kind of pick and choose when they want to be explosive, because the Bills have a gear that now with Tyreek Hill out of Kansas City, the Bills have a gear only they can get to in the AFC. And that's no disrespect to the Chargers or the Broncos, but until we see it on the field, it just sounds good. I've seen it with the Bills.
Yep. I expect them to be playing for the Super Bowl. I expect them to finally make it. They get the monkey off their back against the Chiefs. Maybe
And
they
then
have
lose to
play
Tom Brady. How crazy
Oh,
would that be?
dude, Buffalo would. Oh, could you imagine? They'd be so depressed. Like they finally don't have to face him 2 times a year. Then they see him in the Super Bowl and lose. Oh God, I would feel so bad. But realistically, this is going to be one of the best teams in the league. They're going to be competing for it again in the playoffs. Just can they situationally be good enough in big moments where they can finally get that monkey off their back and win one of these things? That's really what it comes down to for this team.
It's going to be awesome to watch. I know that much.
Okay, well, that's going to wrap up our AFC East preview. We're almost done with these things, Tyson. It's been great going through these with you. I mean, we're pretty much aligned on a lot of these different teams. If you haven't seen our other ones, definitely go check it out on our YouTube, Apple, or Spotify. AFC West next.
If you're a Vikings fan, go check out the NFC North one. Brad is all over Kevin O'Connell.
I'm all over the Vikings. Tyson and I's biggest disagreement to date. Maybe we may have some bigger disagreement in the AFC West. So we'll see. In the meantime, like, subscribe, and share the show. Follow us on Instagram @ _ the roundtable pod _ TikTok is the same, and our Twitter is @TRT _ pod. As always, we appreciate you guys listening to us. Until next time, peace.